Preparing.
Good evening, people, and welcome to, what is it, number 4? It is number 4. It's part 4 of our is it 5? Oh, I keep getting, I'm one behind every time on this, aren't I? So part 5 of our alternative preparation for adoption with me, Scott Casson Renee himself.
Al Coates.
And tonight we are joined by our very special guest, and we will be kind to her.
Yes, please.
And
yes,
we love her, and
Thank
we are very grateful that she's come on. But Kat, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I am Kat Samwell-Smith. I was adopted from Chile in 1977, born in 76.
Same age as me.
Oh, really lovely.
Yeah.
And I am a very fortunate place now to be working at Intercountry Adoption Centre, IAC, where I'm a project worker and a placement officer. So I help people. Where I help people who want to adopt, and I help them through the process. And I have also been on a panel now for a year and a bit. So I'm still a relative newbie on the panel, but it was something, because I'm adopted, that I've desperately always wanted to be, because I've always thought it would be fascinating to be on the other side as such on the table. And so that's me.
But what a fascinating backstory. I mean, Chile.
Yes.
I mean, help me out with this one. Where exactly is Chile?
So the west side of South America.
Okay.
Right by the Andes.
Quite exotic, and you ended up in the UK.
Yes. Exactly. It's very beautiful. It's absolutely stunning.
Yeah, I was going to say I've been to a few places like that, but I love people's backstories when they tell those stories. And obviously we've kind of done a bit of work on inter all those kinds of things of adoption. So it's a fascinating topic. But tonight we're going to talk about panels, and we might reflect on your kind of experience of being adopted a little bit. So, and as people who've been through panel, Al and myself, as parents, as foster carers, as adopters, we've been there. And what we would like to do in this part of the kind of the series is really focus in on panels, because I think that, personally speaking, having experienced it and having experienced one in 2007, they were very, I'm going to use the word stuffy, and very serious. So what is your kind of experience? Al's going,
Sorry, we really try so hard to make it not that. Again, I'm so fortunate. I really love being on the panel, because you are surrounded by people that have got a vested feeling about adoption. They're there for a reason, and they are not there to try and trip anyone up at the last hurdle. They are there to support and really understand, have this couple or has this single person got to that stage and they really know what they're doing. And that's the bit that when we sit there, we help each other. We do a lot of pre-work, obviously. We read the PARs. Again, everyone know what a PAR is, the
Prospective Adopters Report, just in case.
So we read, can be 180 pages per couple, and have to read it in detail. And as I read it, I go through and think about them and all the questions I want to ask. And when everyone comes to the table, we all have our own ideas, our own perspectives, and we listen to each other and help one another. And I just find it so fulfilling. And it's something that I don't want people to come to us and be scared, because we already know they are so nervous, so incredibly nervous. And I think we've actually been quite lucky through the COVID, being able to do them via Zoom. So because people feel slightly more relaxed, maybe. I know Zoom is not everyone's cup of tea, mine too, but there is that aspect of not actually sitting at a table on the other side. And I just think as a team, as you play your role in the team, you actually can get really great answers out of people. And the nicer you are, the better the answers are. And then the better you know that whether or not these people are able and the best adopters.
Go on, Al.
Sorry, I was going to say.
I'm getting to know Al very well after 5 years. I know when he's got a question, you see. He doesn't even have to say it, and it's just his facial
send off these. I've got a question vibe. So I was thinking, I mean, why how did you get onto a panel? Because I think a lot of people, panel is this moment in time that a lot of people are working towards, since the beginning of the course. It's kind of like, we'll take you to panel, and the panel will say this, and then they'll make a recommendation, all of that kind of stuff. So how did you get on how did you get onto the panel?
It's quite, I try and keep it as brief as I can, but because I'm adopted, I've always known I was adopted since 3, 4, 5 years old, and I've always been very, very proud of being adopted. And with that, it meant that I told all my school friends that I was adopted, and this continued up until I was 15, 16 years old. And I started doing talks about being adopted, as in, so there was a Romanian orphanage crisis, and that was on the TV all the time, and it was getting very bad publicity. Oh, sorry, adoption was getting very bad publicity. It was a very negative time for adoption. And it was just when Be Sky B was launching, and I was...
Memories? Come on.
I know.
I didn't expect that.
I was sitting in the live film studio. I can't remember why, but I was there, and it was all about adoption. And they came on to me and said, are you happy that you were adopted? Would you have rather have stayed in Chile all those years ago, kind of thing? I'm like, wow. I said, yes.
It's a mad question.
Yeah, it was a mad question. I was very young as well, but I felt very confident about it, going, yes, I'm so pleased I was adopted. I would rather be here rather than languishing. I think I used the word in an orphanage back then. And it really gave me the voice to start talking to more people about it. And because I really believe how adoption can be positive, when there's still, even nowadays, there's so many negative and very truthful, sad, hard adoptions. But that's not my history. That's not my truth. I have had a most wonderful adoption. I've been so fortunate. Yes, there've been hard times, of course, but the actual whole process of it. So I wanted to be that positive person. So when I was about 17, 18, I started doing kind of tours kind of in Manchester. They did adoption, Manchester and Nottingham. They did adoption conferences. I was invited to there. I spoke at that. Then I started working on prep courses at IAC when I was about 21. And then I was then asked to be a director and trustee of Intercountry Adoption Centre, which I've been for 20 something years. And I've recently just stood down because I'm on the panel. So it's been a long history, but it's just because I want to help as many people and constantly try and change the idea that adoption is really, really can be really tough and negative, when sometimes it just works beautifully. It really does. And I want to be that person to say, you're being fed all this and you're researching and you're hearing these horror stories, and that's good. You need to know about the bad stuff, but there is good stuff. And that's kind of why I ended up in the panel, because I want to show people and I really want to make them think about the adopted child. And again, sometimes, and I think this is a really good area maybe to discuss with you, it is how I think sometimes people come to the panel and they've got very preconceived ideas of what they think a good parent should be to an adopted child, but they're thinking about it in regards to themselves, not from the child's perspective. And that's the bit where I sit there with my flag and go, okay, that's lovely, but you're not actually talking to me about the child. You're going in kind of blinkered, because they are desperate for children. People are desperate for children, and they sometimes lose track. It's not about you, it's about the child. And it's so important to get that across.
Is that a welcome conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Yeah. I think it needs to be said. And sometimes, because the journey is so long for these prospective adopted parents, they've done all the courses, they've ticked all the boxes, they've met the social workers. And sometimes it is just about them, and they just need that tiny bit of, can we turn that thing I read in your pile on its head and make you think about it from the child's point of view? And then maybe you'll understand what I mean. And then very receptive generally, because I'm adopted myself. And in a couple of panels, people have actually asked me direct questions when I'm on it, which I love, because it means they're interested and they want to do the right thing, but they don't have enough interaction with people that are adopted. So they just don't know.
Yeah. It's interesting, because I was thinking of the phrase, is adoption children for parents or parents for children, and it's sort of it's like one of those riddles that can't quite be resolved, because yes, of course it should be children, it should be parents for children. That's the start point, but the reality is that can't be just all true. It's got to be children for parents as well. And so do you feel that there's just sometimes the balance tips too far one way during the preparation?
Absolutely. I really do, especially for when you come from Chile, from a different country, that especially if people that are a prospective parents have not got much knowledge of, if say they're not from the same countries, or they're just doing it because they think it's a nice way of getting a child faster, whatever it might be. It's generally, when I read a PAR, there are those areas which are really missing, is the cultural needs of the child have been forgotten. And that's a big red flag to me. I always use the word flag, but sometimes when I read these, I just think, well, you know, I'll just use me. I'll use a bit of me as an example. So when I was adopted in 1977, my mum's best friend Loretta is Chilean, and she and her parents lived in Chile. So my mum said to her, "Oh, is there any chance you could find a child? Your parents could find me a child in Chile." And Loretta said, "Yeah, fine." So she sent her mum and her dad to the orphanage out in Santiago. And my mum said, I want a little girl. And they found me, and they sent a picture back to my mum and dad, in England, and said, you know, choose the girl on the right. She's got a nice smile. That was always the story that came with it. And so they did that. And so my link with Chile is really Loretta. So my mum's best friend, she's still my godmother, and she's gorgeous and wonderful. And her parents were very much a part of my life when I was little. But otherwise, and it sounds so crude, but otherwise I really had nothing. And when I talk about it, when I do my talks and stuff, I really stress, I give my parents a little bit of leeway because it was so long ago and they had no prep courses. They weren't taught about this stuff. But I mean, it went as far as, you know, we still take the piss about it now, that my dad would somehow, if he ever saw any panpipers in the streets, that could have been you, that could have been. I'm like, yeah, lovely. Thanks for that, Dad. Perfect. And it's not for any want of anything apart from culturally, he doesn't know. And anyway, they're from Peru, so don't even give me that, you know. It's not even Chile. It's not even Chile. And I once got some friends nicely. Again, this is all with love. So none of this ever hurt me or upset me. You know, they went to Brazil and they brought me back Sounds of the Rainforest. See, it's these little things I still remember, a tape of Sounds of the Rainforest, because they thought that would be nice, and they were nice. And I did get some panpipes. And what else? I got nothing. I got nothing. And so when I do the flight, so I tell people this story and saying, I got nothing, but it doesn't make me any less culturally aware than anybody who had, as a child, as anyone who did have all the support of their parents. I don't believe, because I had that inner, I don't know what it is, an inner knowledge, an inner quest to find out more about Chile. So since the age of 4 or 5, any project or any kind of thing I have ever done in my life has revolved around coming from Chile or adoption. It's so central. And I think that's because my parents might not have done the cultural side, but they certainly made me proud of who I was and being adopted. So it was always part of me, but I wish they'd know more. And I think the only thing that we really, really think back upon now is that they should have made me learn Spanish. Absolutely. That was a huge miss, because when I have been back to Chile, and I've been back twice, it's been a massive hindrance. I learned when I was 15 my Spanish in the end, because my dad paid for the lessons, out of guilt, of course. And it's like, yeah, even, you know, I spoke to him the other day and he said, yeah, no, I do realize that was a big mistake. And of course they should have done everything else, but they didn't. And it's okay. It really is. Yeah. But at least I think
I was going to say, reflection is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Yeah. You know, you don't realize, you know, just, you know, how I guess the impact of specific comments or sentences that may, stick with you.
Yes.
And what I love is that you're very kind of resolved about it, as in it happened, they've been told off, and we move on, kind of thing. That's I think that's I've just got to mention, you have a child who keeps on commenting on Facebook.
No. Benji, stop it.
All right, okay. It's just hi mummy. That's my mummy. Love you, mama. Hi, mummy. And I just said your mummy is fabulous. So there you go. And IAC have just really asked us to confirm that international matching things are a little bit more regulated now than maybe when you were adopted.
A legal disclaimer.
We do need to mention that.
This is all my personal opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
About my adoption.
Other opinions are available.
Exactly.
Crikey.
So in terms of the panel, then,
we do the training.
Well, exactly. So the panel that you sit on, what is the makeup of that panel? I mean, you're the I don't know how you refer to yourself, adopted adult.
Adopted adult, exactly. So we've got the doctor on there, a health professional, and social workers. So it's a lovely mix, and we've got a lovely girl that I've known forever, and she's an adoptive mother and an adoptee herself. So it's a whole range of people. And like I said, it's all these different perspectives. And some people were adopted relatively recently, and some people were adopted years and years ago. And I think that's why you get such a broad kind of array of ideas. And it's about, I know I said about earlier, about supporting one another. It's about trying, because it's difficult. I mean, I wanted to be on panel because, like I said, I wanted to be able to help, but I'm nosy. That's part of me. I'm really nosy. And I wanted to know, how did these people come to being in front of us? And I want to know everything about them. And and that's a good thing, because I want to know that everything about them, and it's going to be safe for their child when they adopt them. And so this is why it's so important. And this is why we have these questions, because we need to ensure that they really have understood the things they've learned on their journey. And they're not just doing the tick boxes. Oh, well, we know this, and we've learned to like that life story, and we've learned that. But actually, when you come to being there, it's like, tell me more. What did you learn about that? And so then it's never should be about putting them on the spot, because that's not fair. And we enable them, we give them a set of very broad questions before they come to panel. So there's nothing that should scare them. But on the day, things might change. So we might slightly go off center, but we do try and help people by saying, these are the areas we're going to talk to you about: life story, cultural sensitivity, whatever it might be. And as I said, so when I'm on the panel, I think the thing that I've certainly learned in the year, and I'm learning all the time, is about my subjectiveness, because I am adopted. Therefore, I come into this with a slightly different perspective to a social worker who's on the panel or whomever. And sometimes I hear myself thinking, is this really that important? And I think, yes, it is that important, because that's why I'm on the panel. That's why they asked me to be here. So when I'm always on about life story books, or when I'm always on about telling the child from a very, very young age, whenever that is, that's because I believe that's the right thing to do. It doesn't mean that all adopted children believe that, but it's just my opinion through my upbringing. And that's what I bring to the panel. And I hope that I bring honesty and kind of just, make sure, like I said earlier, about we're constantly thinking about that child who's coming from an entirely different culture, and they're coming to London. They don't have a clue about the smells, the tastes, the what's going on outside their window. It's so different. And again, we've learned so much nowadays about the trauma that they go through from leaving one place. I mean, of course, there's trauma in the UK if you move from one place to another, but additionally, you've got the culture, the smells, the taste, everything that is just enormous, and it's not going to, things aren't going to change overnight for that child. It's going to take an awful lot of preparation, and have the parents really talked and helped the child, the transition for them. And sometimes they haven't thought about, if with video calling now, they can get their camera and show the child their bedroom, what their bedroom's going to look like, and put the posters on the wall and show them, put out the window, what your view is going to be like. I mean, I've heard some amazing parents tell us they've taken their prospective child on a video call down the road to the school at the bottom of the street. So they can envisage the walk to school, and that's going to be their school, which is just, not everybody can do this, I know, but it's these examples where you think, these guys know what they're doing. They have thought through it. They're trying, and about smells on their sheets and the pillows, they're going to bring those over, and the teddies and the food. They've gone and found out what the food's like, or they cook it themselves anyway. It just shows such thoughtfulness, and that they're ready to learn.
Can I ask you a slightly controversial question, and playing a little bit of devil's advocate, really? And I think that don't be like this. It's you don't see this on Newsnight, do you?
Not in this day and age.
Maitlis rolling her eyes at Jeremy Clarkson.
I bet she wish she could, though.
I bet she wish she could. I've lost my thread now. No, I haven't. Right. Okay. So I was thinking that sort of international adoption, there's been, I guess it was sort of accepted, and now it's increasingly less accepted or it's controversial. And we see, if you keep your finger on the pulse, you'll see that the stuff that's happening in other countries like America, really, that it can sometimes feel very much driven by profit. It's money. Has that been difficult? Because you're clearly, the word champion came to my mind. You're a champion for adoption. I could imagine you as a 20-year-old kind of, shaking your fist at the television.
Yes, totally. Absolutely, that's me. Yes.
So has that view changed? And how do you reconcile sort of some of that, well, frankly, some of that really ugly side of adoption, international adoption?
Oh, it's so difficult. It's so difficult because I am who I am because I was adopted, and this parallel life idea is really hard, because had I not been adopted, I'd still be in Chile and doing what with whom I don't know. Was it the best for me? Was it the best thing for me? I believe it was, and I believe that my birth mother did what she needed to do at that time. However, I am also so strongly aware that had she had the support that she needed back then I wouldn't need to be adopted, and she could have looked after me. But she didn't, and she had nothing, and she was a young mum. And this is Chile, and I will speak specifically again about me. Chile, 1976, Pinochet era, people missing. It was a horrific time, and she was young and scared, and she did what she thought was the best thing. And I've always really reconciled that with myself, that as a mum now, you do what you think is best. It doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't. But I believe what she did was right and the best thing. And so I think people, if adoption didn't happen, where would we be? I don't know. Yeah. I dread to think what would happen to us. I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have made it. But it is about the ideal world, and we don't live in an ideal world. But yes, I do think if there was more support for young mothers, that adoption might not be necessary, but it is. And so I think adoption, because it happens, we need to champion it, and we need to support and be there, and really make it something that we don't just push under the carpet and don't want to look at because it's considered wrong, or you're ruining somebody's lives. They did what they thought was the right thing. If you can't change it.
Thank you. It's a horrible question, but I just thought we try and reflect what is being said. Really, it's a question that I think is out there. A lot of people do think
there's a lot of pain, of pain and anger. And again, I'm not them, so I just don't know. But it feels like those people that are hurting so much and not got the support that they need now. And therefore the only way they know to let it out is with other angry people and sad people. This anger is not coming just anger, it's sadness, obviously. And I believe they need, to say they need help sounds so negative. I know you're not. I'm not trying to say that, it's not. It's just that because now we've got Twitter and Instagram, we've all got a voice, which I think is fantastic. I love the idea of us all having a voice now. And so they've got every right to say whatever they want, and I've got every right to say whatever I want. And if I see too much of it on Twitter, I just ignore. That's fine. And they probably will ignore me going, I love being adopted. They just think, oh, God, get out of here. I don't want to hear that story again, which is perfect. So, yeah, it's complicated.
It is very complicated. Cool.
By jingle.
Yeah. I'd love to ask you about panel, but Al's kind of steered us off in another direction.
Come back to panel.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, so Gary Maxwell Shorter, who is actually the chair of one of the panels I used to sit on, ironically, and social worker, he's made a comment there. An adoptive mother who was adopted would be a real asset to any panel, he expects. I think that, the makeup of a panel needs to be so diverse. And, just going back to what you were saying there, your thing about, what you look for. I mean, as a panel member, I'm looking at it from the perspective of someone who's been a parent of adopted children for too many years. Secondly, as a gay person sitting on that panel. So I'm looking at the inclusivity and diversity of the family, potentially. And then, this is one thing that I'd love to ask you about, is the faith aspect of it as well, because with IAC specifically, there's a number of religions that come together for these kind of families. I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
You articulated that so well.
I did. I'm doing so well tonight. I'll put my teeth back in a minute.
On fire.
But it strikes me that faith is definitely a thing.
It is.
It's definitely there with IEC, because we're talking about children from different cultures, different religions, different ethnicities.
Yes.
How much of that is a kind of something that comes to your attention?
Every single time. Every single panel. It's so important. It's something that we need to talk about, because it's again, it's really difficult, because we can't prescribe a panel, and therefore we are there to listen and to guide. And religion, when people are religious, they want their child to be enveloped in their family and follow their religion. They go to church every Sunday and so on. And that's absolutely fine. That's what that family's going to do. But again, I will say, and the however, is that's fine. But what happens when that child rebels and doesn't want to follow that religion? That's the bit where we can explore that and say, how will you deal with that? Are you open to your child having different views? Have you got any example? Has anybody else in your church, has that happened to anyone? Is there a youth group? We try and explore that so that they understand that just because you want that child to follow your faith, your religion, your ideals, it might not happen. And are you ready and prepared for when things go askew and they've decided, I'm having no more to do with my parents' religion? And sometimes, again, it's various. Sometimes the parents are not ready for that question, because they presume that it's all going to just kind of plain sail, and nobody ever is going to grow up. And that's another thing. Sometimes adopted parents don't think children grow up. It's the strangest thing. They think they're going to stay little and not ever rebel or not ever want to leave the nest. And when I talk to them and say, I traveled the world when I was 19 years old for 6 months, and we did some stuff in Chile and Peru and Bolivia, and I taught out there. And I was telling, this was in a preparation course years and years ago, 18, 20 years ago. And the prospective parents said to me, so you're telling me that your adoptive mum and dad let you go? And I was like, yes. But they had strived so hard to get you. Why would they let you go? And I was just like, well, because it's what any age 19-year-old wants to do. I mean, I wanted to travel. And they were like, oh, well, we hadn't thought of like that. And it's like, sometimes they can't see further than next week, which is fine and understandable. But again, we're there to kind of just say, can you think about when they're older, when?
Yeah.
Or, like you were saying about being gay. Again, sometimes it's very tricky, because people will just say what they think you want to hear. Oh, of course, we'll embrace them into our family. And we've never had any. But okay, again, you say that, but you're living in wherever they're living. How many gay people do you know? How many, and so on and so forth. We question it just to make them understand that, oh, maybe we need to think a bit more about this.
Yeah.
So I think religion is a very is a big topic, and it's something every single panel we definitely mention.
Yeah. That's really interesting, because I'm the one that brings up the diversity, inclusivity, and faith in every panel. It's like my little, right, Scott's here, so he'll deal with that bit, and we'll do it. But it's interesting as well, because you need to have a bit of confidence to do that sort of stuff, don't you? It's not okay. You're not questioning people's morals and their kind of. All you're trying to do, really, well, I'm speaking for myself now, but all I'm trying to do is make them aware, so that, in 10 years' time, because like you say, we're focused on the next stage of the process. We're focused on that little person or people who may come into your home and you may become their parents, but we're not thinking about 10, 15 years' time. And, I'm there with that, because I'm there. I'm 15 years later, and I'm kind of dealing with all that sort of stuff. But it's really important that we kind of bring that up at those stages, so that they realize that actually, they're not going to be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 all through their life. That's really important. So thank you for bringing that up.
Can I ask a question? It's perhaps a link to that, but I'm very conscious that I don't want to put you onto thin ice and you breach any confidentiality. ISC, Satwinder, we're being careful.
Yeah, no. We know they're watching as well.
He's watching. So have you ever been in a situation, and perhaps Scott, you could answer, because I know, Scott, you've sat on panels.
Scott.
Because I'm answering this.
Have you ever been in a situation where people have not got through panel, or you felt that actually they needed to go away?
No.
No. All right. Okay.
Evil! Are you just saying that? You're just saying that.
Oh no.
So I'm gonna maybe take it. You can ask Scott some questions if you
want. You can sip your wine, Kat.
I will. Thank you.
And so Scott, glug. I've never been in that situation. I sat on a panel for a year. I know you're still sitting on a panel, aren't you?
I am. Yeah. I've nothing else to do in life, so I might as well.
I know. It fills your days in. Have you ever been in a situation where you've had to say, actually, we just aren't there?
I mean, a couple of times actually, and I mean, this might sound wrong the way it's going to come out, but it's not meant to. But I've sat on a number of panels with local authorities and voluntary agencies and all the rest of it. The majority of the times that it happens is with local authority panels. Actually, the only times that it's happened have been on local authority panels.
Right.
Yeah.
I've never had a deferral from a voluntary agency or a private agency, which I think, is interesting. And the reason it's interesting is because the majority of those actually are kind of independent or agency workers. Because let's face it, sometimes we have peaks and troughs, don't we? So we have, and I'm trying to stick up for agencies, for local authorities here, because they only have a certain number of social workers. If they've got an influx of applications, they need to, divvy out cases to get them assessed and through to the panel stage. But interesting, I mean, I will say this, I'll say it's been for different reasons that they've been deferred. There's, I can't say that there was one kind of golden thread that ran through them all. It was all for different reasons. Some of it was just about them not being quite ready. They've come to panel, they're not quite ready. Maybe they need to do a bit of counselling about their own kind of experience of loss of that child that they wanted, and all that sort of stuff. So and it is I won't deny it is hard. It is hard for any panel to make that decision that they're going to defer it. It's not something that they just come to within seconds. And it,
it's a real shame, you see, because I don't think it should have got to panel. That's the thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That's one of the things. That is one of the things.
And that's why I believe it, that I will, talk about IAC, is that I trust that we have gone through everything with this family. We have gone through the nitty gritty. The past shows it, and every examples. And so by this time, they should really know and have gone through the training, the courses, their own learning, additional learning, And if they haven't, then I think that's when I would be saying what you said, Scott, about, you guys just aren't ready.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Or if, we had anyone, I mean, it's never happened, but it's like we aren't prepared to tell the child that they are adopted. That is something that we do all the training for, and say, obviously this is now you need to tell your child as soon as you're able to, in the age appropriate way, that they are adopted, because it's what you need to do nowadays. We've learned from our mistakes of not telling them. But if you came to panel and you weren't willing to do that, then that would be in a case where we would have to go, okay, you need to have more time to think about this.
And the quality of the assessment, then why would you bring someone to panel who wasn't ready?
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that then, I was mentioning to Kat beforehand, I've only done one adoption assessment. I've done lots of Form F assessments, but my primary mindset is where are the gaps? What are the panel going to ask? And I've been, Scott knows my story, but I think I've been deferred more than I've been successful through panels. Yeah, I was, which is odd, because my experience of being deferred was that the social worker, convincing panels never, panels always recommend. It's like, we can't say it won't happen, but it will, it always happens. So we got deferred in our first panel, and on hindsight, it was. I think the combination was that the social worker really liked us and was convinced that we would be okay.
Yes.
And it maybe just left a blind spot that she said, well, I know these people. And this was a time when panel, you didn't go to panel. We weren't invited to panels. This was donkeys years ago. Okay. So the panel said, we need to know more about this certain aspect of our lives. The next panel that we were deferred at, which was for fostering. It's like a long story.
There's a theme here.
There's a recurring theme.
You're allowed to say that, I'm not.
It was, again, just that lack of, we just want to kind of bottom out some of these issues. One of the issues was that they were suspicious that we would perhaps adopt the children we were going to foster. And we convinced them thoroughly that we wouldn't, and then did.
Really? That's hilarious.
Yeah.
They were right.
And I don't think I've ever told this story, but the final panel we didn't get through was we were invited to go to panels. This was and because of a very long, complicated court proceeding, they wouldn't let us into the room to look at our so we sat outside, and we were due to be first on, and then they said, we'll put you on second, and then we'll put you on third, and then panel had lunch, and then they put us on fourth, and then they said,
that's hard.
We have to go home now. So we went home. That was a dark day in Coates Towers. But we're not here to talk to me, are we?
But I was just going to say that I think that we can safely say, between Kat and I, that would not happen anymore, because that's one thing that I feel confident about as a panel member. And it doesn't matter whether you're a local authority panel, voluntary agency, private agency, fostering, adoption. They would never put anybody like that through that these days. And if they did, then feel free to write in and tell me, give me your agency, and I'll have a word. That's all I'm saying. But, I mean, that's just, I mean, Kat, maybe we can
People
talk about this.
Get deferred.
Well, they still get deferred, but it's not about the deferral. It's about the waiting.
About the treatment,
it's about putting them through that, I mean, Kat, I don't know about you, but, I feel very responsible as a panel member to make sure that the couple or person who is coming into that panel room or on Zoom feels as comfortable as they can do under those circumstances. I mean, what is your kind of approach to that? How do you I try
and be very smiley.
I'm
smiley, and I say, hello, my name's Kat, and I was adopted from Chile. Exactly. And I try and get it through the screen, because I've only done about 2, I think, in person. So most of mine have been on screen. But it's when you have your question, it's slightly, you add in a lot of not casual language to try and frame the question. So you don't presume, but you say things like, I think you might be aware of when your adopted child comes over, blah, 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 blah. And so you kind of just let it go in softly, rather than just go, and by the way, can you tell me, please? Well, no one would do that. We don't want that to happen. Because as we said, we want honest answers. And what I haven't mentioned it, but what I love about this panel is that I can read the PAR, think I absolutely know this couple, see them, and I'm blown away. I've got my book here. I've got 8 pages of notes on this particular couple. I don't think they've done this. I'm like, no, not a chance. And I write down my questions. I put them all out, and and come on the screen. I'm like, it's really interesting. Within 5-ish minutes, you go, I don't know what that PAR was about, but it wasn't the same couple that I just met. And
amazing, isn't it?
It's so strange how that couple.
It's very strange, isn't it?
I feel like
is that in the writing of the PAR, or is that in our perception of? See, because I'm the same. I've done that many times. Well, not many times, a few times. I need to watch what I'm saying just in case my panel chair is watching from an extra view. But I've done it a few times as well, where you just can't get a feel for the person or the couple, and it's really difficult to kind of analyze the ifs and the whats and the maybes of the PAR. It's hard.
But that was what I was saying earlier about being subjective and being the adoptee. And because when I read them with a certain eye, and therefore I'm looking for certain things. And if I don't see certain things, that's when I question it all and write it all down. But what we do, and I don't know if this is the same in every panel, but we write our questions down and then send them in to the panel leader. And then they come back on the day, and then we go through them. And it's a really great way of having 2 or 3 days since I wrote the questions to then hear them out loud and going, oh no, I didn't quite mean, that's not what I actually meant. And then other people able to go, did you mean this in this way? And go, that's what I meant. Because they don't have that emotion attached to it that I do. I still want the same question. I just want it worded in a different way, and we can work together, which is why you need a great team and you need friends to be there who you trust, and that you've got their back and they've got yours, because you can get into tricky territory and things that, we were saying about religion and whatever it might be. And then you think, oh, yikes, I don't want to go out on a limb here and say this. I need to make sure I've got everyone happy that we're going with this question, because it is sensitive. There are obviously a lot of miscarriages in people's stories before they come to see us, and we have to be so sensitive to that. And on like one occasion we've had somebody cry, and so we really have to deal with this heightened sense of anxious emotion, hurt, whatever it might be, and learn, say, okay, well, don't worry, we'll move on. You have to be very quick to say, okay, we won't do that question. It's not necessary. We'll think about something else, because it is a terribly stressful time for people, and we don't. Although we do know that
stakes are so high for people.
Yes, they are. Yeah,
because suddenly when they're in this setting, they aren't necessarily who. Again, the opposite of what I was saying about the PAR. Sometimes they just clam up and freeze, or the husband takes over, the wife just goes on because they don't know. They just like me, just can sometimes you just don't let anyone else in, and that's what happens.
That was me.
I recall one
Tristan just kept on going on, and I couldn't shut him up. In the end, the social worker kicked him under the chair to say, "Shush, you're digging a bigger hole." Go on, Al. Sorry.
I was going to say, I remember one panel where we read the PAR as it was, and we sort of, before they even came in, we had a conversation about whether it was even worth bringing the family in. Because there was so many significant questions. So we got the social worker in, and the social worker, I can say this, it's not enough time has been on the bridge. The social worker was like a limp lettuce. So we'd ask questions and they just didn't know the answers to them. So it was like, do you think what about their dog? And they go, the dog seemed fine. It was like, and so that we kind of asked them to leave, and we just said, I think we're going to have to defer this. But out of courtesy, the fact that they've come, let's ask them a few questions. And they came in, and as they walked in, we all went, this is fine. These are not the people that they've written down. And so the questions that we were thinking, we're going to have to be really delicate, we asked them directly, and they answered them just really confidently, articulately, and we all went, well, wow.
They blew us out the water. I know.
Just so strange.
And of course, by the time it gets to panel, I mean, the quality assurance that an agency should, have over the paperwork, I guess. You know, I think what I'm trying to say with this is, you know, that paperwork should really, you know, whilst it can be amended, I mean, it is a document that everybody's agreed to and signed to.
Yes.
But, you know, that in that instance that Al's just mentioned, you know, that really should have gone back and been a little bit rewritten, because, you know, that's even though that was what was presented to panel, it should.
That's what we would have asked. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And one example of a deferral, I mean, you know, Gary is on it tonight. He's obviously got keyboard warrior syndrome.
He's obviously retired because he's sharing all kinds of things.
I don't know what he's doing these days, actually. He mentioned Ofsted a couple of weeks ago. I don't know what that's about. And he said, you know, there was a very overweight couple that were presented to the panel.
Yes.
And he means like can't get up the stairs, overweight. They were deferred, and they just couldn't evidence that they had taken on the medical advice, and the power was written in a way that indicated that they had things like they had joined the gym. Well, the reality was they had joined the gym, but they'd never been, and that was unfair on the couple as well. And that's the thing, isn't it? You know, I mean,
we do that. We have a lot of cases like that.
Yeah,
a lot of cases, and it's hard
because it's not fair to. And like Al said, you know, the majority. You know, I always say this with a bit of reservation. Like Al said, you know, if you get to panel, then you're kind of nearly there. Yeah. Unless something significant pops up, but this is significant stuff, you know. And as a social worker who presents to panel and, you know, tells maybe a few porkies on the way, that's not fair on the couple who are coming to panel.
Yeah. I think what I really like to see is the continuous learning. So people that come to panel that know more than me about this, that, and the other, I think, oh, well done them, you know. That's good. That's knowledgeable. Well done. They've gone on that journey and they've learned more. And you can say that they're going to, you just know, you in your heart of hearts, they're going to continue learning and they're going to take everything that you've said. And even as much as that people, when they go on courses, you have some wonderfully honest answers and kind of, you know, a couple of times people have said, oh, we had to go to that course. It was 3 days. Oh, it was awful. But then I learned, you know, and I came out of it going, oh, I see why I went on that. And you think, that's why we do it. Because until you're in this situation, people have a lot of, you know, we all do presumptions about what it's going to be like to adopt and how you adopt. And they just need to be questioned on all these different areas of their life that they may never have thought about. And you know, again, I think I was saying, I think, you know, sometimes people haven't dealt with their own issues before they come to us. Well, actually, that's not entirely true, sorry. But I think there are occasions where people haven't, whereas actually other people I've seen have. But then there must be those times that you just think, you've got to deal with your stuff first, your baggage, because you can't take on somebody else's as well as dealing with your. And I think that's so important that they are in the right frame of mind to adopt and to go through that process. You would have thought that they would have got there, but sometimes still not. And, you know, the support network is still so valid and valuable. When people say, you know, we're wanting to adopt, but we don't have the support of my mother and father. And you think, okay, that's interesting. I'm not going to say yes or no, but that's interesting. Can you tell us a bit more about that? Or because I'm not saying it's impossible. Of course it's not. And you absolutely can do it without the support, but you must have some other anchors. And what is it that got you here? And that's why family is so important when we look at on the panel. We like to know who do you have good relationships? Who have you had good relationships? And although a lot of people still talk to me about adoption being unfair in the treatment of adoptive parents before they adopt, you know, we would never have this. We just pop out a baby and then, yeah, I know. But, you know, this is not what this is about. This is, we use the term parenting plus, and it's not meant to be glib. It's meant to say that you've almost got to be a superhuman parent to adopt, because it's just not just having your own child, and then understanding everything else that could happen. And it's terrible. You do need to understand it. You don't have to know it all, but you need to understand that it might happen again. And that's why we do all these things, why they go through courses. This is why we do what we're doing, to try and help people know that it's not simple, but there is help there and we will get you through it. but you have to be in it to want to do this. And if you're not, then we see that really easily by panel. If you see somebody that's very half-hearted, or you think, well,
you've come to the wrong place if you think you're going to get away with it. Let's face it.
I think it's fascinating because my perspective has always been that the panel's job is ultimately a quality assurance, and it's a quality assurance of the assessment. You're not doing the assessment. You're saying this assessment is adequate, or it's not adequate, or it needs strengthening. And so sometimes I think that often adopters can get focused in on the panel and miss the fact that the assessment's happening now. That like you're saying, the example you gave of the grandparents, that then a social worker worth their salt would go, this we need to fix this. We need to work out what's going on and how we're going to fix it so that the panel can be satisfied.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
And that's one of the processes we go through. Is I sit with my colleagues, because I quality assure Form Fs, and I go, if I was on panel, I would be asking you this question, question,
fantastic.
Answer it, and put it in, put the text in, because I know. I mean, I was pedantic on panel. I fell out with someone over the serial numbers on passports, on birth certificates, going, why? But Pete, that's what you want. You want people who are going to pick up,
you need that.
Nitpick.
You need that. Yeah.
I was an awful panel member.
I was going to say as well, so because I used to do prep courses like you did, Kat, and
I love them.
I used to sit on the panel as well at the same time. I think it's so long ago I can't remember, but I used to help the local authority kind of organise prep courses and kind of try and have my input and what have you, and deliver them as well. And what was interesting was in the kind of in the Coram Bath. It was Bath at that point, but the Coram Bath guidance, there is a kind of section near the end about panels. And I wanted people to kind of maybe experience walking into the room that the panel would be in and stuff like that. So I kind of put my little take on that and actually created a panel room and all that sort of stuff, so that people knew what to expect and knew that, there would be this person, that person, and the next person. Do you think that's useful, or do you think that's a waste? I mean, it was a while ago I did it, and I'm not sure what the impact was, but I was trying to make people kind of be comfortable and know what to expect, because well, that's the thing, isn't it?
I know
it's just
what you're trying to do.
It's not normal, is it?
No, it's not. It's a very abnormal, and they're just so nervous.
Yeah,
and it's sometimes it can be quite painful to watch. But like you said, we do everything we can to make it as light-hearted and let them know that they can ask us questions if they're ever not comfortable or whatever they need to do. And some people come to the panel now with children because they're at home, and the children pop in and out, and it's not ideal by any means, but it's life. You can, if you're coming to panel and you've got a child already, well, you're not going to say no, are you? But it's that kind of thing is being much more open to how we are now. But
I think thinking about that. I was thinking that in some ways, probably one of the other key things that's missed is I present to Form Fs to panel, but I've only presented one adoption to panel. I've sat everywhere. I'm like I've done everything. But I never, of all the things I do professionally, panel is the most stressful. Because I think as a social work.
Oh, as a social worker.
As a social worker.
Yes.
Because I have spent X months sitting in this person's living room, and they've poured out their hearts, and I've made a sense of their lives into that 180-page document, and then it's all on me to then get that into words that work and get them through panel, and they'll sit. It's a very intimate. It's a very unique, I think, social work position, because you become so involved in people's lives in a way that perhaps is not common in other aspects, and then you have to take them to the big house and present them to the people and go, I think they're good enough.
Yes.
Terrifying. But anyway, I'm not here to feel sorry for social workers.
But that's a social worker's job. I mean, as someone who sits on a panel, as a parent who's been through panel, that's a social worker's job.
Absolutely, but social workers
kind of way I look at it. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. But I think that panels are quite, in all honesty, so a panel normally is independent of the agency, isn't it? You know, it's independent members, even though you have a connection with the agency,
right.
or
Independent
whatever it is, it's
member.
independent.
Yeah, that's what I am.
And I think that we respect the social workers an awful lot, because I think when you're trying to give them feedback in a constructive way, it's really difficult sometimes, because you know that they've put a lot of time and effort into it as well, and you don't want them going away going, wow. You know, I mean, I in my early days of a panel, well, it's funny you should say that, because I know for a fact, even though nothing was said, but I know I really upset someone one day, because they just how they kind of come across, or how they'd worded something. I can't remember, it's so long ago now. But that kind of then held for the subsequent panels that came after that. And I don't want that. You know, that's a really kind of horrible thing for a social worker, to think that I'm going to be picking up on everything that they do. And I'm not a social worker. I mean, I'm just I'm a lay person who just happens to be involved in the adoption system. So it is a really hard one. However, on the other side of that, you know, social workers are present to panel, then that's part of their kind of role, isn't it? You know.
Exactly.
Sorry to put you down like that, Al, but you know.
You're back in my box.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I have a question. It's for both of you, actually. But we'll start with Kat first. Because there's a lot of chat about whether panels are required.
Oh, yes.
What's your thoughts on that, Kat?
Definitely
I have my
safeguarding,
thoughts.
Absolutely safeguarding. I mean, yes, I know we don't have to, but the whole point is just double, triple, quadruple checking everything at every stage to make sure I'm repeating myself because of what we've spoken of, but it's to check, to understand that there are no areas in their life that have been forgotten or missed, or the social worker hasn't seen, because then, you know, this could be their first case of an international adoption. You don't know. And I am there to say, you didn't even mention the life story book, or if you did, it was 2 sentences. That's, you know, I'm not saying that the couple aren't ready, but we need to explore that. If you didn't explore it, then that's what my job is here. And if we come out of here going, they didn't have a clue what I meant about what a life story book was, then that's why we're here. It's to catch the odd, not the couple out, but it's to catch the odd snippet of information, which is crucial for that adoption to work, I think. And if you didn't, I think so many things would be lost. And I really am a strong believer that we are there just as another sounding board, more ears, more, you know, that's what we do. And it's to get the perspectives of all the different people to understand the couple more fully. And it's not just the one social worker who, you know, exactly what we just said about being so embedded with the family that sometimes they lose the greater picture. And that's why. So I absolutely believe you need to continue having panel.
I totally agree with that. I think the thing I would add is it also holds the agency to scrutiny. Like that, with all respect to the IOC, but all of the independents, that's how they earn their living. They approve people. There's money is passed hands. So these are independent, as much as independent as they can be. And they say, good enough, not good enough. You're doing your job, you're not doing your job, or try harder. And I think that's why, as a professional, that's why panel creates a level of anxiety, because they've got that role and holding agencies to scrutiny, because an unscrupulous agency or an unscrupulous manager or unscrupulous
but it's not reflective on the parents. It's not.
No, not an applicant's tone. No, definitely not. Yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think, from my perspective, I think that, you know, all of what you guys have said, but, you know, I think they're just a really important factor as well, because, you know, these documents eventually could be the documents that a child reads.
I know, which is why what I was saying about being
we
specific.
need to make we need to make sure that the information is spot on, that's bang on, because that child deserves to know the truth. And, you know, we will never know the full truth of what they've experienced before they've come into the system. But, you know, if we can make sure that everything is truthful from there on then, which I know doesn't always happen, sadly, but, you know, if we're responsible enough to be able to do that, then, you know, that's part of the panel process as well, isn't it?
Could I add, I think the final thing, I think it's probably not, well, it's not essential, but I think the ceremony, the sense of ceremony is really important.
Ah, that's nice.
I think that if you did 6 months getting your document ready, your Form F, your PAR, and then it went and sat on a manager's desk and they went, yeah, fine. It would be not a sense of anticlimax, but there'd be no sense of that, right, we did it. So that going to panel, going up to the big house, putting your case before the people, and
stop calling it the big house. That sounds like a prison. Seriously.
Well, make of that what you will. But I think that for me, someone who can legitimately say has been quite roughed up by the panel experience.
Yes.
I still
like your. You did it.
I did. Yeah, my last panel was my crowning glory, but that's another story for another day.
Well, I'll ask him about that next podcast.
Briefly. So the panel where they said you can't come in, the court has not done what it needed to do. It took
5 o'clock. We want tea.
12 months later, we came back to panel, and we got through panel. And hang on, one of my children's trying to FaceTime me. We got through panel, and they didn't even ask any questions. They just said thank you for coming back. One of my daughters is trying to FaceTime me.
Really?
Yeah, don't feel sorry for them. They're quite rambunctious individuals. I
can vouch for that.
Yeah, so we went to panel and they said thank you for coming, and they didn't even ask us any questions. But that's a unique story. But that sense of ceremony for us was hugely significant.
And that's the thing. There is definitely a lot of Benji is active on these old.
Oh my god!
Yeah, he's replying to everybody. Yeah, you might want to go on and delete some of them. Nothing rude. I'm not saying that. But the ceremony thing, because at the end of a panel, you're one step closer, but you're still not quite there. That's how I remember feeling. It's
a major step, big tick.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's
you hear all the good things too about yourself as well. We all sit there and then say. And they're amazing this, and they've got a great family unit, and then they're going to be fantastic because they've shown this understanding and they've read this, and we do like to say lots of nice positive things. So that
that's what I was going to say. Yeah. Sorry. And that's generally like at the end when there's summary before the decision. You keep them on the edge of the seat. Well, the chair does. We don't.
Drum roll.
We just sit there going, well, we know what the decision is. Just crack on there. But it tends to be that the positives are kind of relayed before the decision is, before the recommendation is made. And that was another thing, because some people may not know, if they're thinking about adoption, that the panel only makes a recommendation. They don't make the decision. Just to put that out there. It then goes to the old
recommendation only
agency decision maker, who makes the old the final rubber stamp. But it is a process. Or doesn't. And I've been there. I've been there.
Oh, we've all been
those
there.
Ones. I don't like those ones. Those ones aren't very nice, are they?
You need to catch up after this. I'm amazed by these stories. You get this far, and then it all goes.
Oh yeah, that's for the next podcast.
Yeah.
Scott, we should really wrap up. We're past bedtime.
Yes, I feel like we could chat for hours. Kat.
I happily do it any other time, honestly.
Yeah. We must have you on again. Yeah, you are. You're fabulous. Thank you for coming on.
We have plans to get Kat on again.
Yes,
in
please.
the future.
Yes.
I shall bore you with my life story.
And
I don't think it's going to be boring.
No.
I just get that feeling. I'm just saying.
You'd be right.
No.
Well, Kat, you stay with us while we bid goodbye.
Okay, thank you.
Next week, we're doing another one next week, Al?
I have no idea. I've lost any sense of who I am or where I am in life.
Well, I'm similar, to be honest. You've gone back after half term. We're on summer holidays here for 13 weeks. So, it's kind of this adulting thing and parenting thing has just gone completely out the window. So let's just say we're coming back next week. Same time, same place. We will have a guest. We don't know who it is yet. We don't know what the topic is, but we'll do something. But thank you everybody for watching.
Sure.
Thank you for your comments, and we will see you next week. And thank you, Kat.
Okay. Bon Jovi.
Anchovy.